Elections are a cornerstone to any democracy. In this exclusive conversation with Willis Otieno, he answers very critical questions. Are elections supposed to happen in 2027 or 2026, and why?
So we go to Article 136(2)(a. Everybody can open their constitution, read it. And it says, the election of a president shall take place on the second Tuesday of August in every fifth year. So you look for the second Tuesday in August in the fifth year, not every 5 years. The word used is in the fifth year.
How are elections manipulated? And what is the panacea to electoral fraud in Kenya?
9 p.m. of election night
Yes.
to the time when we get to know the results, it takes you 7 days. It takes us 7 days. Why? That 7 days is the opportunity that is used by people who want to undermine our electoral process. The National Tallying Center, if you create it, it becomes a place for rigging. And anybody who has his people in that center can rig. It can be the president, serving president, or the opposition. It can be rigged.
And also, in this broad conversation, Willis Otieno answers what really ails Kenya.
And what we discovered in our forensic audit was this. The bulk of our debt is odious debt. That whole concept of affordable housing by government, it's a stupid idea.
Let me begin this way. Piki piki ponki, pakamilu disco. Well, I think that is a phrase so many Kenyans, most of those who are interested in elections, will quite understand where it emanated from. Tonight, ladies and gentlemen, on the power table, we have a guest with us who is trying to help us to dissect these critical issues that actually we're having tonight. This is Willis Otieno. I'll tell you more about my guest. But of course, you understand about the power table. This is where we get to bring all the power, the opinion shapers. We get to bring all the people that shape the conversations in this country. And my guest is actually no stranger to the courtrooms, campaign war rooms, or the corridors of electoral reform. He is a seasoned constitutional lawyer, a fearless advocate for democratic accountability, and a voice that has challenged power at the highest levels. Well, you may remember him from the 2022 presidential petition team, where he passionately argued about and argued before the Supreme Court, or from sharp critiques of the IEBC. Beyond the courtroom, he's also a political strategist and the deputy president designate for the Safina party, if I'm not wrong, positioning himself not just as a critique, but as a potential architect for Kenya's democratic and political chapter. Well, tonight we ask tough questions. And some of them are our elections credible or just peaceful? And can our judiciary deliver true electoral justice? Among many other questions that we're going to ask here, some of them political, and which we ask is political stances on these political issues. And of course, this conversation begins tonight, titled Rethinking Elections, Justice and Politics in Kenya. Thank you so much, Wakili.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Coach.
Yes.
I'm glad to be here.
Piki piki ponki.
Yes.
Pakamelo disco.
Pakamelo disco.
What does even the phrase mean for those who may not understand?
Piki piki ponki pakamelo disco.
Yes.
Was a childhood game, and children still play it.
Yes.
And it's when you give a child multiple choice toys to play with.
Yes.
And they are torn as to which one to pick. They'll always go piki piki ponki pakamelo disco, and where the disco lands, that's the toy you give them. So that is what Chebukati did for us in the last election, because he called Raila Odinga.
Yes.
So he called William Ruto to all come to Bomas.
Yes.
Departing from this practice as we know it.
Yes.
Normally, you only invite the person who has met the constitutional threshold to Bomas to receive the certificate of a winner. By the time people go to Bomas, normally, the media houses have all told us who is the declared, who is the president-elect. But in this particular instance, he called Raila, he called Ruto, come to Bomas at 3 p.m. the live streaming of the results has stopped. The choir from Tanzania is singing and they're dancing. So which formula was he going to use?
Wow.
So I'll summarize it for the common man, the voter, to understand that was going to be a picky ponky.
So it means the first person who got to the IBC was the person who was to be given.
The person who the disco would land on will be declared the winner.
Quite much interesting. And we are glad to actually have this conversation with you because you're very passionate about elections,
Yes.
amongst many other issues in Kenya. But as we start this conversation, perhaps let me ask you the state of Kenya's electoral system. Because number one, the credibility of Kenya's elections has actually been questioned for the longest time. Yet we understand the importance of election in any democracy. What do you make of Kenya's electoral system that perhaps policymakers and even other public the public servants, or rather stakeholders, actually ignore, but are very important?
You know, if you look at the Kenyan electoral architecture, I think it's one of the best in the world. But there's only one elephant in the room. There's only one major issue, infraction, that affects the fairness of our elections. On polling day, Kenyans turn out in their numbers, and they peacefully line up in their polling stations, and they cast their vote. They brave the chilly nights to count those votes and to record the results. The devil normally comes between the polling station and a place called Bomas, which is not necessary, in my view. Because if you look at our elections, they take place at the polling station. At the polling station, you have the election officials, you have the agents, and you have the citizens who voted, whose votes are being counted. And you have the result declaration forms. People never fight at the polling station level. Because by the time you leave the polling stations, we are all clear what is the return for each candidate. It is how the results is transmitted from the polling station to now what they call the National Tallying Center, where you find a chairman of IBC has now repurposed himself. He's calling himself the returning officer for presidential elections. An illegality again. Wants to now start calibrating the results and making true declarations without seeing even a single ballot paper that was cast by the voter. The currency of an election is the ballot paper and the results declaration forms. How are they handled from the polling station to the National Tallying Center? That is where the devil normally lies. And that is where our elections are manipulated. The sad thing, it cost the Kenyan people a minimum 10 billion Kenya shillings to set up that National Tallying Center at Bomas. A center that is just giving an opportunity to those who want to undermine our sovereignty, to have a bird's eye view of the entire country and decide how they are going to manipulate the results. Because if we are to practically go through the polling and elections, every polling station has at maximum 600 registered voters. At maximum. Some have less than 600, some you'll find have 200, 100. So depending on the number of people registered. So if by our regulations, polling closes at 5 p.m., give or take, give the election officials 1 hour to rearrange the room.
Yeah.
So it means polling closes at 5.
Yeah.
By 6 p.m., they've rearranged the room.
Yes.
They want to start the count.
Yeah.
So they start the count, and they normally start with the presidential ballot. Give or take, the count for presidential starts at 6:01 p.m. Even if you are counting 1, 2, 3, there are only 600 ballots, remember. You are counting maximum. They can even be less, but they cannot reach more than 600. Even if you are counting at slow pace, by 7 p.m., in the entire country of Kenya, every polling station has finished and has counted the presidential results are known, the whole country. Then, out of abundance of caution, I will even say, let's give them 2 hours, from 7 to 9. Just for any eventuality, a grace period. I am certain that by 9 p.m. of elections night in Kenya, the numbers that each candidate has received exist.
So do you believe that perhaps we always have these standoffs
So
For a reason.
where's the standoff? The standoff is purely how to process the results. So what happens? Somebody sets up what they call the National Tallying Center.
And even the delays that we experience.
So, and it takes us 7 days to move from that's 9 p.m. of election night
yes.
to the time when we get to know the results. It takes you 7 days. It takes us 7 days. Why? That 7 days is the opportunity that is used by people who want to undermine our electoral process to interfere with the results.
Okay.
If we are being honest, I will ask you, go to the United States of America. They do their state elections.
Okay.
On election night, by early morning of elections night, all the major networks will be showing you breaking news.
Okay.
So and so has been elected president. Based on the counts at the respective polling stations and the states' tallies. By 11 a.m. the next morning, the president-elect will have given his acceptance speech.
Okay.
And the loser of the elections will have considered and congratulated the winner.
Okay.
Let me shock you. Do you know that the election management body in the United States of America meets sometimes on the 4th of December to formally look at the results and make the declaration? That time, the transition is ongoing.
Yeah.
Everybody has transparently seen what happened at the polling stations, the returns from polling stations, and they know who has won. So also in Kenya, and that is why I went to court on the minor KI case. And we got a court order that our elections are polling station based. And they are done at the constituency level. Our elections are constituency elections. Each constituency has a returning officer. And each constituency will have polling stations. And you declare the results based on the polling station results. But what the manipulators of our elections do, they set up a national tallying center. Then they tell the polling stations to transmit the results at the national tallying center. We are talking about 46,000 polling stations. Okay. You are receiving one result from Ruat Primary School in Homa Bay. The moment it lands, another one comes from Vita Primary School. Before that one is transmitted, they display to you one from Laikipia Primary School. Before that one is settled in, you have one from Viga DEB. At that point, it's now they've created a web. You cannot track.
Okay.
Because they're now just throwing to you forms and figures from all over the country.
Yes.
You are not able to track. So they start telling you now alphanumerics. Raila Odinga this much, William Ruto this much.
So if indeed we have a system that is meant to ensure that we have a very credible elections, because we understand that what actually happened in 2007 led to a number of commissions actually, and we had the Work Commission, if I'm not wrong.
Commission, yes.
Yes.
And the Kriegler Commission.
And the Kriegler Commission, yes. Which actually then, after we have gone digital to some extent, and this actually was to ensure that the elections are quite much more credible. When you talk about elections being stolen or being rigged within that time, someone will dare ask that how is it even? How does it happen during the 7 days? What really happens or what really transpires during that time?
What happens is that the moment you remove the declarations from the polling stations and the constituencies,
yes,
they create a national web, a maze. It's a maze that starts creating confusion. Okay. Because you are receiving results from Bungoma, one polling station in Bungoma, one polling station in Mombasa, yes, one polling station in Marsabit, yes, from all over the country. Yeah. So people lose track. Nobody can keep track of what is being displayed, where they're coming from. Then that is the opportunity for fake forms to be introduced and are used to make declarations. Okay. The Supreme Court of Kenya never bothered to inquire into what was the purpose of Book 2 of 2 of the Form 34As. Why did Chebukati decide to print two sets of result declaration forms, Book 1 and Book 2? Oh. And both books were used. Okay. So if you are being genuine that you want to make sure elections are okay, apply minor KI in totality. Kill the National Tallying Center. Let the constituencies, let each constituency, because from the polling stations, the election officials and the agents and security, they take the results to the constituency tallying center. They are working with the forms and the ballot papers. They go with them to the constituency center. They hand them over to the constituency returning officer.
Okay.
He writes down on the form 34B.
Yes.
This polling station has come. This is their tally.
Okay.
The agents are there. The election officials are there. Security is there. They all confirm, indeed, you've written what we've brought to you.
Well,
they move away. Until the last constituent, the polling station comes, then the returning officer can stand up and say, I'm the Mvita returning officer. These are my results. That is what the media need to be displaying to Kenyans.
When you talk about, Wakili, when you talk about us, then it's like devolution. Let's devolving and then the tallying center from what we have as the Bomas, the National Polling Tallying Center, and then having tallying center at the constituency level. If we talk about manipulation of the elections, don't you think then it gives them even another opportunity to then manipulate these elections at the constituency level?
It will be harder. It will be harder because at the constituency level, the arrow is sitting with a blank form 34B, right? As polling stations come, remember the polling stations, where it was counted, they seal the boxes. They get into transport to go to the constituency tallying center. The agents are there. The election officials are there. They will all see the PO, presiding officer of the polling station, hand over the declaration forms. They will see the returning officer write down, this polling station has received, this is the number of votes each candidate has received. And if there's a dispute, the ballot papers are there.
Okay.
So if everybody's satisfied, they walk out. Then the next polling station comes.
Yes.
If every polling station now will come and they are entered, any point where there's assuming the arrow wants to write what was not at the polling station, what has not been delivered, the ballot papers are still there. The agents are there as a protective mechanism. They're able to say, no, you're trying to enter, he's not here. If they're disputing the entry or anybody disputing anything, the boxes are there. You can open them and recount.
Wow.
But what we end up doing in our what Chebukati's commission used to do to us is the moment the results are transmitted to the National Tallying Center, not a single agent at the polling station sets foot at the National Tallying Center. Which election is this where the primary observers of the elections who are there when the ballots were cast are not allowed to access the center where it was tallied? That is the mischief. And they throw to you forms that you don't know where they're coming from. 46,000 polling stations. You are at the Bomas. Even if you tell political parties to send their agents to Bomas, what are they receiving? They are just now receiving garbage that is thrown at them. They have no means of verifying. There's not a single ballot paper.
Okay, let me ask you this. When you talk about piki ponki, like Chebukati just, when you talk about the commission of Chebukati, just picking and giving Kenyans the leader the commission wants, I'll tend to ask this question that perhaps many Kenyans will wish to know. Because, yes, we've known that, rather, it's a knowledge that the elections in Kenya, its credibility is questionable. But particularly for the 2022 election, people thought that even if they were rigging was to be done to favor Raila Odinga. How comes Ruto, who was, let me say, in opposition, how did he rig himself?
You know, the moment you say that an election is susceptible to rigging, anybody can rig. That I mean only the state can rig. Even the persons who are not in the state can rig. What we need is an election where the state and the opposition cannot rig. And the National Tallying Center, if you create it, it becomes a place for rigging. And anybody who has his people in that center can rig. It can be the president, serving president, or the opposition. It can be rigged. But what we want as a country, because elections is about donating your sovereignty, that process should be done in a very transparent and accountable manner. That the vote that is cast by the citizen comes to count. That's why I'm saying kill the National Tallying Center, focus on the constituencies. And if there's any dispute, that dispute is localized in a particular constituency. Raila Odinga filed a petition challenging the election results for president for the whole country. I don't think he had a problem with the votes that were cast in Kisumu Central constituency. But when he filed his petition, they are questioning all elections. The Supreme Court proceeds to conduct the petition without seeing even a single ballot paper. So which elections are you doing? Which dispute are you even doing? You're lying to yourselves. Because the primary of elections is the polling station.
Okay.
And if you adopt the Maina Kiai case fully, and what I'm advocating,
Okay.
you will be able to know that the problems you're having is in relation to this polling station or this constituency, Mogoshio constituency, for example. You localized it. So you file a petition only in respect to that local constituency that you have a problem with.
Okay.
And you are able to call the ballots for that constituency. So in Supreme Court, part of the things that they were saying, oh, it's a logistical nightmare to mop up all the the ballot papers and bring them to Nairobi. But if the dispute was localized, because we followed the transmission, we followed the tallying in every constituency, we know that the problem constituencies are the following. You are able to quickly mop up the ballots for that problem constituency and open them for recount or retally. And you give the people of Kenya justice. But when it comes national, the first thing IBs normally says, logistical nightmare, we cannot bring all the ballot papers, we cannot bring the boxes, they're all over the country, accessing is a problem. So now convenience circumvents the will of the people.
Let me ask you another critical question, sir, still on the elections. Because during that time, people questioned, and even lawyers questioned, whether in the commission of 7 people, does the chairperson has all the rights actually to declare the presidency? And what I get is that the finding of the court was that Chebukati, or rather the chairperson, has got that mandate.
No, in fact, what the Supreme Court said, very interesting. The Supreme Court said the work of verifying the results is on all the commissioners. It's the commissioners as a unit that must verify the results, not the chairman. But they refused to follow up, and they ignored the evidence of 4 commissioners who said, we did not verify all the constituency results. They still went ahead to uphold the sole verification done by Chebukati. But they proceeded to say, no, IBC must make sure that they work as a unit. You cannot have some commissioners not involved in the elections process. So they were blowing hot and cold. It's either the work of the commissioners as a unit to verify. The chairman's role is just to come out as a spokesman to make the announcement of what they have verified, but not to act on his own in doing the verification. But fundamentally, even that to me is a problem. It's a problem because it still tries to anchor the National Tallying Center. We do not need a National Tallying Center in this country. In fact, Chebukati should be doing the tallying in his boardroom.
Okay.
The Kenyan people
Yes.
watching on TV,
Yes.
because we have capacity to have cameras in
Yes.
all the 290 constituencies.
Yes.
We should all be able to watch as the constituents are doing their tallying and announcements.
Yes.
And every Kenyan becomes a tallying officer in his home. Okay, Mvita constituency, you finished. This is what your IRO has announced. You write down. Jimmy Wanjiki, this much. William Ruto, this much. Alonso, this much. You go to the next one, which one? Mogoshio, Jimmy Wanjiki, this much. So that by the time all the constituents have tallied,
Yes.
every Kenyan who was watching TV
Yes.
and following will be able to say, the person who has won is this. And even the media should be able to do their projection. Based on our observations, we are projecting that the winner of the elections is X.
So from all these issues, will you term Kenya's elections as free and fair?
No, the Kenyan elections cannot be free and fair if the final outcome is tampered with.
Okay.
Election is only free and fair
Yes.
if the final declaration reflects the will of the people and is done in a transparent and accountable manner. We don't have transparency and accountability in the tallying.
Yes. Quite interesting. So do you believe that the emphasis of actually the outcome of our elections has actually been on peace and rather and not actually in the expense of justice?
Peacepreneurs are the ones who are encouraging the people who purvey our elections. In fact, I will not be surprised if those who plan to undermine our electoral processes are normally the ones who start sponsoring those peace messages. Because if the same people who went to cast their ballots were peaceful on the queue, very rare occasion do you find incidents of violence during our polling process. So why is it that peacepreneurs start shouting peace before the results are now declared? Yet, the whole process has been peaceful. What we should be demanding is transparency. Uphold transparency and accountability. show us everything, do everything in an open manner, transparent manner. That will guarantee peace.
Let me just ask you this, because actually we understand that the judiciary are very critical in solving disputes, particularly electoral disputes. And you've been there in a number of elections, and you've experienced some of them. Like in 2022, you were there in the court, and perhaps, if I should ask, that do you believe that Kenya's judiciary actually operates even independently when it comes to electoral disputes, especially at presidential level?
I don't think that maybe they operate independently, but I'm not persuaded. And more so, in terms of how the Supreme Court in particular, I have no grounds to pick with the High Court or the Court of Appeal. But my grounds with the Supreme Court is that by their conduct, and more so in terms of how they've handled, for example, pre-election disputes, lends credence to this view. When you look at the Supreme Court in the pre-election period, they are not quick in determining pre-election disputes that goes before them. Why? When you see the High Court sitting even into the night to hear a dispute and render a decision, Supreme Court, in some instances, can sit on a dispute for even a year. And they proceed to sit after that election to hear the case. The case is about the elections which are coming. Someone is a candidate. He has been unfairly stopped from being on the ballot. He has filed a case from the High Court, Court of Appeal. It has landed before the Supreme Court. Supreme Court fails to hear that case. Election is held. Then after the elections, Supreme Court calls him, now come, let's hear your case. It tells you that they're predetermined mind. Because if we are genuine about election justice, then in equal measure that the Court of Appeal, the High Court, have had to sit even into the night, late into the evening, to hear disputes, why should the Supreme Court also expend equal energy to resolve these pre-election disputes? When they start skirting around trying to undermine people who are seeking access to justice in the pre-election period, it means they are captured. They are part of the mess. That is part of what starts leading credence to a court that is not serving the interest of justice, but partisan interest.
Quite interesting. Okay, let me take you to something you've been passionate about. You talk about it so much with so much vigor. And people are asking whether this guy, does he really know what he's saying? And that is actually on the timing for elections. Because people are preparing for 2027. And then Wakili comes and talks about 2026. No, this election actually should happen in 2026 and not 2027. So it's actually confusing when it comes from a legal mind like yourself, or of course of your stature, around this debate. So maybe what does the Constitution and maybe electoral law say, and why is this actually, even this timing, significant in the democracy?
You know, I'm a student of the rule of law, and I'm a believer in the Constitution and constitutionalism. And I invite Kenyans to decide whether they want to live by their constitution or not. Because if you want to live by your constitution, then you must apply it. Inconvenient as it may appear to legacy politicians. I want to invite everybody who is watching us to open their constitution. And as you open your constitution, the first thing I want you to bear in mind in the book of Hosea 8, it says, my people suffer, my people perish for lack of knowledge. And the ways of the world are written in the book. So open your constitution. And the first thing after opening your constitution you must do, remove from your mind the thought that there's president or the governor or a member of parliament has been given a 5-year term. Read your constitution from Article 1 to Article 261. There is nowhere your own constitution that you've adopted and enacted unto yourselves gives the president a 5-year term. So you start asking yourself, then where did I form this opinion that a president is entitled to a 5-year term? Where did I get it from? Because if you look at the constitution, it doesn't exist. But I can help you. In the old constitution, section 9 provided that a president shall serve for a term of 5 years. It was there in Section 9.
So enlighten us on what the Constitution
The current Constitution simply
says exactly, yes.
So I'm coming to that. The current Constitution now says, term of office, Article 142, term of office of president. It says, the president shall serve from the date when he is sworn in to the date when the person next elected president under Article 136(2)(a is sworn in. That is the term of office. Important is that the Constitution has told you his term runs from the date he's sworn in to the date when the person elected under Article 136(2)(a is sworn in. So if you are a prudent mind, you must go to and look for that Article 136(2)(a to find out what does it say, because the term is dependent on this person being sworn in.
Yes.
This person elected under Article 136(2)(a. So we go to Article 136(2)(a. Everybody can open their Constitution, read it, and it says the election of a president shall take place on the second Tuesday of August in every 5th year. So you look for the second Tuesday in August in the 5th year, not every 5 years. The word used is in the 5th year. It is not every 5 years. It is not after 5 years. It is in the second Tuesday of August in the 5th year.
So if the president...
And as a student of the Constitution, I ask myself, what is a year? How do you compute a year in constitutional terms? And it leads us to Article 2595C, which tells you, in terms of computing a year, if used in the Constitution, you pick the date of the event, and it runs from the date of that event to the eve of the corresponding date in the following year. To the eve of the corresponding date. So if the elections, remember in Article 136 we are told, elections takes place on the second Tuesday of August in every 5th year.
Okay.
So what is the date? The date that is relevant for our purposes is the 9th of August 2022. So to calculate a year, you pick 9th of August as the start to the eve of the corresponding date.
Okay.
The eve becomes the 8th of August 2023. That is 1 year.
Okay.
Year 2 will run from the 9th of August 23 to 8th of August 24. Year 3 will run from 9th of August 24 to 8th of August 25. Year 4 will run from 9th of August 25 to 8th of August 26. Then the most important one, because you are told to do your elections in the 5th year. The 5th year runs from the 9th of August 26 to the 8th of August 27. So inside that 5th year, because you are told to conduct your elections in the 5th year.
Yes, in the 5th year.
Inside that 5th year, look for the second Tuesday in August. The second Tuesday in August can only fall within the year 2026 because it runs from 9th of August 26, it ends on the 8th of August 27. The second Tuesday is in the year 2026. That is your constitution.
Interesting.
And once you agree on that,
so have you done a petition maybe?
Yeah, there's a group of public-spirited citizens who filed a petition before the Supreme Court. And they're asking the Supreme Court to interpret and to make a declaration.
What is the determination of the...
No, the case is still pending. The Supreme Court is yet to admit the petition. What the petitioners did was to ask the Supreme Court, guided by their own advisory opinion which they had issued in the gender dispute, truth as gender principle case, the Supreme Court had said that there are instances when we can exercise jurisdiction to hear disputes pre-election disputes that affect presidential elections. So these petitions have gone to the Supreme Court and asked the Supreme Court, we have a dispute here. It's a pre-election dispute. It affects presidential elections. Guided by your agenda principle case, can you admit this petition and hear it and create clarity? So that is what we are waiting for, the Supreme Court to sit down to determine if it can admit the petition for hearing or it goes to start from the High Court. We do hope the Supreme Court will be guided by its own decision in the gender principle case, because they're the ones who said it.
Quite interesting. Wow. Actually, that is so much interesting. I wish us to move to something else and talk about politics of the day, because you're also a politician, if I'm not wrong.
Yes.
You wanted to be the deputy president, and while successful, you will be a deputy president.
Yes.
I'll be sitting here with the deputy president of Kenya.
It shall come to pass.
Amen. I'm praying for you so that you can come to the show again and we converse widely. Permit me to ask, because where we are a lot has actually happened. And June 25th was actually a moment that is etched in Kenya's history for so many reasons. And particularly for the revolution of the Gen Zs. But these are echoes of the struggles that Kenyans have been facing since independence. When you talk about economy, when you talk about the politics that is aching us, and there's a lot of things, including health, in the housing, and so many issues. When you look at this government, where it is, what do you think is actually the main issue, or rather the challenges that this government faces that actually has made it so worse between now the government and the people, that anything that the government does, the people are against?
You know, you must understand the context of our struggle. Kenyans have agitated for political rights. And the bulk of our history was more an agitation towards a political liberation. You go back from the fight for independence, the fight to repeal Section 2A of the Constitution to introduce multi-party democracy. And I do believe that when we enacted the 2010 Constitution, our political rights were solidified. That battle for political liberation was concluded. So that is where now we have rights to discuss our politics, to vote for our president, to freely express ourselves the way we do. And we have a very robust Bill of Rights in our Constitution. So the political rights question is sorted. The next agitation is now the economic liberation. Kenyans are now fighting for the political institutions that they've set up to make sense to them, make it make meaning to me at my level. Because we are not going to be talking about enjoying this freedom of speech when we are angry in our stomachs, but we are contributing to the body politic called Kenya. So we are now in the face of an economic liberation. We are trying to birth what is called the Fourth Republic of Kenya. And that Fourth Republic of Kenya, what is holding it back is largely the question of the economic mismanagement by, I call it Jubilee. And it is important that Kenyans understand, even in the context of the Gen Z revolution, why the Gen Zs went out to demonstrate, to revolt. The trigger was the finance bill, which had promised to increase your taxes, levies, and charges. The government needed to get more money from your pocket to sustain itself. And the people said, our disposable incomes have not increased to be in a position that we can afford the increased charges, levies, and taxes you're proposing. And they revolted. We must ask ourselves the question, why will the government be so insensitive that even in the face of a revolt, they ignored all those plights, all those cries by the Kenyan people? 99% of people who did memorandum to parliament on the finance bill said reject. They ignored it. The reason is this. Today in Kenya, 70% of your tax revenue,
Yes.
that is 70 shillings out of every 100 Kenya shillings that you pay to the taxman,
Yes.
goes to pay debt. The taxman, the government is left with 30 shillings, 30% of the revenue to run its affairs. it needs 35 shillings to pay salaries. It needs to send to the counties 30 shillings out of the 30.
Wow.
It needs 30 shillings for operations.
Wow.
It needs to still do development.
Yes.
So going through its obligations, it means that whatever it's collecting cannot meet its obligations. Because if salaries alone has taken, you needed 35 shillings for salaries, but you only had 30 shillings. So you already had negative 5.
So the problem is our debt.
It's debt. And as Safina Party, we started talking about debt way back in 2022. In fact, I do remember our party leader, Jimmy Wanjigi, he did a forensic audit of our public debt. And he had to hire media space to go at Serena Hotel to launch that report. He was paying money to launch the report. Tell Kenyans what the problem is that time. But Kenyans were not interested in listening to the economic question.
Did it
as
happen?
They are today. It happened. It was aired live on NTV. Paid advertisement. What we are now discussing for free. That time Kenyans were not interested in an economic conversation. But now they are. Because now they are seeing the challenges. And what we discovered in our forensic audit was this. The bulk of our debt is odious debt. When I say the bulk of our debt is odious debt, it's important we understand what that means. It means an odious debt is an illegal debt. A debt that was taken without following or complying with the laws of the Republic. Our laws says this. Before you take any debt, you must get parliamentary approval. Tick. The second thing our laws say, when you borrow any money, you can only apply it to development, project finance. You cannot borrow to eat.
Okay.
You are borrowing to build a road, build a bridge, build a school. You cannot borrow to pay yourself allowances. Those are our laws. So we did our forensic audit. What did we discover? We asked for all the parliamentary approved debts from 2013 to 2023. And we found in the period, the Kenyan parliament approved debts that were worth only 2.2 trillion. That is all the debts that parliament you could point in the Appropriations Act. Parliament passed this, you take a loan for this. 2.2 trillion in 10 years. But in the same period, we found, when we look at the National Treasury, statements of actuals, the Kenyan people allegedly borrowed debt worth 7.7 trillion.
Okay.
How? Parliament approved 2.2. You borrowed 7.7. So already tells you the bulk of this debt, around 4.5, is illegal.
So who should be paying odious
I want you
debt?
to understand it first.
Yes.
We went further
Yes.
to try to trace some of this debt.
Yes.
And I'll give you one example. Eurobond 1. Kenya government went to the Eurobond market to take a loan, $2 billion US. So we followed the paper trail. $1 billion US. Part of it used to retire an old debt that had been taken by the previous administration of Kibaki. Correct? We say we can see where the money went. Around 400 billion, that was around 600 billion. Around 400 billion traced, landed into central bank exchequer accounts. So 1 billion is accounted for. That information was released by Henry Rotich, then CS Treasury. So 1 billion accounted for. They took 2. So we said, give us also evidence of the other 1 billion. In fact, Raila Odinga was leading the onslaught in demanding for these documents. Henry Rotich released a swift statement that was redacted, blackened out, where the money showed the money leaving JP Morgan, where it lands, the account holder is blanked out. So somebody received $1 billion US from the Eurobond market in his private account. Is that debt not illegal debt? Why should the Kenyan people pay for it? So as Safina Party, we've taken a position. We shall not pay any illegally acquired debt that was taken in the name of the people of Kenya.
So,
Let those financiers and the people they gave that money bear that burden.
so how do you, because you see, this debt, what you're saying, I know so many Kenyans will actually be wondering what is really happening when you talk about the odious debt, the issue of us having odious debts, and particularly when you talk about odious debt being illegal, because some of them actually, they are taken on loan without the parliamentary approval. And of course, some of them actually wide into some accounts which are private. So people will even be asking, because if a government, like you said, a Safina Party will then assume presidency or leadership, will not pay this, don't you think maybe it will cause diplomatic issues? Not paying, or rather, who then should pay this odious debt? How would we even make them pay? If you were to take,
there
yeah.
is no diplomatic issue it will cause here. This is a country of the rule of law. And the people who gave out the loans have a duty to do what is called due diligence. Buyer beware. When people come into your office as a bank that they want to take a loan, they are representative of the Kenyan government. You must do your due diligence. Ask them, where are your laws? What does your laws say about borrowing? Where is your parliament? As you can see here, your parliament must approve. Where is your parliamentary approval? Give us the answered and the votes and proceedings approving this debt. Correct? Give us the Act of Parliament, the Appropriations Act, where this debt is anchored. Give us. Then, give us your prospectus, which project we are financing. You tell them we are financing this Nithi Bridge. Here is Parliament approval. Then we can give you the loan. But if they don't do it, they were conspirators. They were co-conspirators to defraud the people of Kenya. Why should the Kenyan people underwrite the illegal act? And the concept of odious debt is not unique to us. It has been done before.
Okay.
In fact, when Kenya took the Eurobond, 2 billion,
Yes.
in 2013, Mozambique took an equivalent of what was called tuna bond, $2 billion US dollars, the same amount as Kenya. Mozambicans went to court and they said, these people have taken a tuna bond and the money has gone to other people's pockets. They didn't follow the laws of Mozambique when they were taking the loan. Mozambique people should not pay. The Constitutional Court in Mozambique said Mozambicans will not pay for that loan. Consequence, Credit Suisse executives are in jail. Credit Suisse itself collapsed. They didn't pay.
Wow.
So even us, why should we pay?
Wow.
That is our campaign as Safina Party and our commitment
Yes.
to the people of Kenya. We shall not pay
Okay.
any illegal debt.
Quite interesting. I think that's a conversation that's quite wide, huge, that perhaps we could have another sitting to discuss about the odious debts and all the implications around it, because also there is also the issue of the system, or rather the people who come to lead, whether they are able to pursue what Mozambicans actually did. But as we talk about this government, the government of President William Ruto, there's a very critical issue on affordable housing, which has been a flagship project, if I can say, for the Kenya Kwanza regime. And the affordable housing, if you listen to the ideology around it, it was meant to, apart from creating affordable housing, it was also to create opportunities for the youth. And I'm asking whether it is even the affordable housing is actually something, or rather a project, we can say that it's sustainable to create opportunities, because it's also a question that many Kenyans have actually asked. Maybe your general perspective to it.
For me, that whole concept of affordable housing by government, it's a stupid idea. And I say it's a stupid idea because of this. Number one, you're collecting tax money from the Kenyan people. You're collecting housing levy from the people. You are building on public land. and then you sell the same Kenyan people at almost same value as the private sector. The affordable housing cannot deal with the housing problem if there's one. What we need that can work is for government to create a conducive environment for the private sector to identify the market niche and be able to put up the affordable housing. How will we do it differently as a Safina Party? Number one, what is the main thing that is hindering the private sector from accessing capital? Is because the Kenya government is in the domestic market crowding out the private sector from accessing capital. Why? They are borrowing at high interest rates of 14, 15%. A private individual goes to the same banks. The banks will tell you your interest rate should be 20%. You will not be able to afford. That's an unperforming loan right there. If you wanted to create an affordable housing ecosystem in this country, get out of domestic borrowing. Let the banks start hawking loans here, because the banks have money from the same Kenyan people. I will be able to go to Githunguri. I can now access a loan from a bank that is telling me, Willis, will give you a loan at 5% interest rate. Because they have the money. They're looking for people to come and take it and pay them interest. Interest rates will fall. When it falls, I go to Githunguri and I say, these Gen Zs are now on social media. They have seen soft life. They know about studios, nice apartments, Nairobi style. I go and put it up in Githunguri with my loan from the bank at a low interest rate. Somebody goes to do the same in Kakamega. Another one does the same in Taita Taveta, Undanyi. Another one puts. You'll see a property boom across the entire country because people are able to access capital. And they're able to identify which niche, market niche they should be focusing on. That will change. You talk about affordable housing, putting up some houses near Kibra. You're putting 1,000 units in Kibra. That's nonsense. If Kibra has an average of approximate 500,000 residents, based on conservative estimates, even if they're 300,000, what is 1,000 units to the people of Kibra? That's like laughing at them. What a Safina Party will do that is different is radical in nature. What has stopped Kibra from developing? Look at the value of land in Kibra today. Kibra is right next to Upper Hill. What's the price of an acre of land in Upper Hill today? It's around 500 million Kenya shillings for 1 acre. Right? And Upper Hill is now almost saturated. It's the new financial district of Nairobi. Why can't Kibra develop like Upper Hill? Do you know why? There are no titles. As we'll say, title the entire area. Recognize everybody. They have their own local way of that they've come up with, how people are owning land in that area. Just say, whichever way you became locally recognized owner of that land, we'll give you a title deed. Create a title system in Kibra. What does it do? Once you have a title system, you can now commercialize it. With a title, somebody in Kibra will go to the bank and say, I have a title here. Give me a loan, I want to put up a commercial building.
Or they can even sell to an investor.
Or you can sell to an investor.
Okay.
Or enter into joint ventures with other people who have capital. And you'll see the value of land in Kibra, and even the face of Kibra itself will change. You will have empowered the people who will have acquired the titles and created a new ecosystem in Kibra that is financially as strong as Upper Hill. But without spending even a single coin from government. All you'll have done is print papers called title deeds. But you may ask me, how come these people cannot do it? Legacy politicians will not want to see the people of Kibra empowered. They want them to be poor. Because once you give them titles, those become little kings. They'll be your next problem. They want people to go and celebrate and cheer them. And chase them with border borders as they're campaigning all over Nairobi.
So affordable housing, it's something that should be done.
It's a waste of everybody's time. It cannot work. Because ultimately, look even at the Mukuru and at they launched. 1,000.
But so many houses.
No, 1,000. What's the population of Mukuru? They have 50,000. Go to Homa Bay. They are building 600. The other day I was with the Nandi senator. He has the audacity to speak on national TV and say, we've built 200 affordable housing units in Nandi County, in Kapsabet. The population of Nandi is 887 58,511. And somebody wants you to celebrate that he has put up 200 housing units.
Okay, Wakili. Another issue is on the Shifsha. What do you make of it, actually? Because it's actually something that has been quite controversial.
Shifsha, the main problem, number one, the first problem for Shifsha, number one, is the transition from NHIF to Shifsha. Why did we move away from NHIF? What was not working in NHIF? If you have a system that was in place, why not just improve on it? But in between, you created a system where Piero and others, the entrepreneurs of Kenya Kwanza, are earning 110 billion. 110 billion just for system support. Which is this system that is worth 110 billion, that is even more than what the military of Kenya is spending to secure our borders on system support. It's an opportunity for people to steal.
But it's working.
No. It starts from first the infrastructure that is set up.
Yes.
110 billion, if you had invested that amount in actual health service provision, it will have made a big difference to the people of Kenya. Number two, when you say it's working, what does it mean it's working? It's working for who? Right? Look at the measly amounts that they are paying for potential beneficiaries.
Yes.
How long does it take to get approvals? And you cannot say that it has worked for one person, now it's working for everybody. We should be discussing a comprehensive healthcare system, universal healthcare system, that works for everybody.
Okay.
Ask yourself, who are the primary healthcare service providers that are benefiting from Shifsha? Look at the facilities, the private facilities. You'll find somebody is the insurer, his company is the service provider of the IT infrastructure. His company is in the IT infrastructure that is providing. His company is insuring police officers and teachers. His company is also the one that is providing healthcare services and benefiting from Shifsha. So the whole setup, my problem with it, it is set up to benefit certain private individuals. It can be made better. It can be made better. For example, if you asked me, and my problem that I had with NHIF, for example, NHIF was collecting approximately 70 billion per year. The bulk of that money was going to private facilities. When are we ever going to invest in our public healthcare system? As Safina Party, our approach was very simple, radical in nature. That money that is collected from the Kenyan people, public money, the primary investment of it should be in public facilities. 18% of the 70 billion NHIF was collecting is what was going to public facilities. 82% was being spent on private facilities. And the same also continued with Shifsha. When do you think these county referral hospitals, these local dispensaries and health centers will ever improve their services, even Kenyatta? We must change, move into an NHS system where public money should primarily be invested in public facilities. So you are able to improve the facilities, the public facilities, for comprehensive healthcare services. Otherwise, what we are doing, we are just sustaining privateers using public resources. That people now prefer to go to private hospitals because we seem to have accepted that public facilities are meant to be the way they are. No. Public facilities are not meant or designed to be the way they are.
Wow.
We need to improve the nature of care that public facilities should be able to offer. And we are not going to do it by investing in private facilities.
Okay.
Whatever public money the people have paid should be largely invested in public facilities.
Okay. Quite much interesting, Wakili. As we come to the very end of our conversations, there's some three issues I want us to touch on, if you allow me, Director, before we finish. One of them is the emerging opposition alliance. And when we talk about the emerging opposition alliance, we've seen Kalonzo Musyoka, Eugene Wamalwa, Martha Karua, Gachagua, they're coming together, actually. But when we also have Omtata, we also have Maraga, these are people actually who are speaking dissenting voices.
But we also have Jimmy Wanjigi and Willis Otieno. You're not mentioning us.
I'm coming to that.
Yes.
Yes, so we have them. And of course, let me just mention Jimmy Wanjigi and Willis Otieno. And if you look at this, there are people who seem to be on the same side, and then we also have the position. It seems like some of them are together, some of them are actually not together, and even begs the question, because these are people who really want to take the leadership of William Ruto home and then usher in a new leadership. My biggest question and Kenyans' concern, number one, is what is the agenda of the opposition? Number one, when we talk about now, because we have different factions of the opposition, what is the agenda of the opposition? That is number one. And number two, who we can even unite this opposition together? Because if they don't unite, then it therefore means that we could experience what happened in 1992, 1997 between Moi and the opposition, if I'm not wrong.
Let me tell you, number one, don't worry about that.
Yes.
That has been taken care of. Moi won in 92 and 97 because those days we used to have what is called simple majority. And Moi only got 33% and 35% of the votes in the two elections. That time there was no 50% plus one. That was the old constitution. This new constitution, it is 50% plus one. So even if the opposition is not united, William Ruto must still look for 50% plus one. He will not get it. Okay? In fact, I will encourage the opposition to be divided. Let Matiang'i run. It will block the Kisii vote from William Ruto. Let Kalonzo run. It will block all the campers of William Ruto. Yeah.
Let Raila
run. Then we will get the best two to go to a runoff.
And then we'll also have Willis.
We love Jimmy when Willis running, as we are looking for people.
And Gachagua will also want to run.
Let the people, the legacy politicians who are used to tribal politics, let them run. I encourage them. Let them lock out William Ruto in their tribes. But then we have the critical mass of Kenyans like myself, who, as we believe in ideology politics, will also be there. So those who are like minds, who wants to see an ideology as the driving force of our politics, we are there. Okay. Let them vote for us.
But even as we're talking about, yes,
the best of us will get to the runoff. Okay?
Okay.
So what unites the opposition, what we are all agreed on at this particular point is that William Ruto must go. Him is going. He's gone.
But we've not agreed on the agenda.
No. That is what I'm saying. What we've agreed on. What we've not agreed on, and this is where you see as a Safina party we are still on our own, is what next. Okay?
After he goes.
Because otherwise, William Ruto may go and you get another Ruto. Ruto is almost still there. We must be very careful and clear on what we are going to do next. What led William Ruto to the state where he is in today? What captured him? If you don't understand that problem, then in 2 months' time after being elected, Kenyans will be on the street, even you must go. And as Safina party, we are very clear. The problem is the economy, stupid. When we say it's the economy, what is that which is ailing this economy? I told you 70% of your tax revenue goes to debt finance. It's in the debt. So are we all in the opposition side agreed on that agenda? Maybe it's just Safina party seeing it. Maybe Wamunyoro is seeing something different. Maybe Kalonzo is doing something different. But as we are very clear that the problem is this debt. If you don't deal with the debt, that next administration will still be coming to Kenyans to increase their taxes, levies, and charges when their disposable incomes is shrinking. They will be on the streets demonstrating against their finance bill. They will burn down your parliament like they burned down William Ruto's parliament. So we are not just saying Ruto must go.
Okay.
That one is done, is gone. What we should be focusing on, what next? What's the future? What is going to inform our governance?
So from what you're saying, do you believe that the opposition, because Safina party is still alone, not yet joined any alliance, do you think that the current opposition, led by Gachagua and Kalonzo, let's talk about that one. From where you sit, do you think they have an agenda? If they do have an agenda, do you buy that agenda?
No.
What is that agenda?
I'm very clear that I don't know what the agenda is. At least they have not communicated to me. So I cannot spend time to discuss my competitors. I'm very clear what our agenda is. The agenda, they can articulate it. Me, I can advocate what our agenda is. And our agenda is economic liberation. We are creating the fourth republic of the people of Kenya. And that fourth republic will be about economic liberation. And we are saying the chains of colonialism that is around the neck of the people of Kenya is that debt, which is odious. At least I've not heard them discuss it.
Okay.
So I cannot say we share an agenda on that, but at this particular point.
Okay.
Maybe in future we may share an agenda. For now, we don't share it as a common agenda.
Okay. If you look at some of the people who are in the opposition, this opposition, are people who actually have been in government. People who, if you look at the track record while in government, Kenyans have termed it rather unquestionable, because if you look at maybe Rigathi Gachagua, he used to support the housing levy. He used to support some of the things that they are now actually advocating against. Muturi and Kalonzo has also been a vice president, and people are asking, what did he do as a vice president? And so there are a lot of people are actually questioning a lot of things on these people from where you sit, because you are a seasoned leader. Do you think these are the people that can actually take Kenya to the next level? If you give an honest review of these people, and their track record.
The cumulative effect of legacy politics is where we are today.
Okay.
And it's the right of every Kenyan, even if he's a legacy politician, to contest for office. But I'll tell you, if you want more of the same, you have enough to choose from the legacy politicians. That is why, if you look at Raila today, Raila and Ruto were presidential candidates, right? Martha and Gachagua were running mates. Today, the presidential candidates have formed a broad base. They are together. Their running mates are caucusing together. And you think it is any different? It's the same. Yeah. These are the legacy politicians. They were all, Raila and Ruto were presidential candidates. They are on one side. Kalonzo, Martha and Gachagua are running mates, one side. And you expect any change from legacy politicians? The problems we have here is legacy politicians who knows how to mutate themselves. Today they are this, tomorrow they are this. They can change positions and rechange their positions, change their coalitions. But fundamentally, what informs this politics? What's the ideology? That's what is lacking. That's why your problems cannot be solved. The only person who ever tried solving your problems was Mike Kibaki. But Jubilee clawed back on whatever gains Kibaki was making. So Kenyans either choose, you want to continue the legacy politics, there's enough of them there. You can choose from. But if you want to see a positive change in your lives, that's what Safina Party offers. We believe that the time has come when we must create the end of legacy politics.
So you believe that even if Rigathi Gachagua, Kalonzo Musyoka, Eugene Wamalwa, their coalition took the presidency, there is nothing much they will be able to change?
I believe legacy politicians will not change anything. Whichever side the legacy politicians are. Today they are opponents, tomorrow they are allies.
Wow. Raila Odinga, the same.
Legacy politicians will not change your projection. Raila Odinga was a hero of the second liberation. He fought for political rights. I believe that the determination of that struggle was on the 27th of August 2010, when we adopted and enacted unto ourselves the 2010 Constitution. That was the highlight of his fight.
This will beg me to ask you a particular question before, as we come to the close. Because we had the Gen Z revolution. And when it happened, then Raila Odinga joined hands with President William Ruto. And according to them, it was actually to stabilize the government from people who they thought actually wanted to, from the president actually, was it to commit what we call, to overthrow, actually, let me say, to overthrow the government. What do you make of the broad-based government and even the agenda that they had, the 10-based, the 10 agenda?
In that 10-based agenda, what have they implemented? Yeah, the scorecard is out there. What have they done on the 10-point agenda? Has there been accountability for those who are abducted?
Has
we
it
are still seeing abductions.
Has it stabilized the
No.
government?
Let's look at the 10-point agenda.
Okay.
It has stabilized it for some people. You're now seeing the experts nowadays are flying choppers everywhere. They are stable. But for the common man, they are still facing economic pain. So it has not stabilized the people. It has stabilized certain legacy politicians.
It has
And we must
stabilized.
call it for what it is. Legacy politicians are having a field day now called experts in government.
It has stabilized the economy for them.
It has established their economy,
Economy.
not the Kenyan economy.
Okay.
Yeah. So there is no change. The 10-point agenda,
Yes.
even the ODM Secretary General is loud saying he's taking scores, and he's seeing there's nothing being done on the 10-point agenda. Yeah, he's the custodian of the document.
Yes.
Co-signatory. He's saying so far the agenda is not being implemented. They are scoring poorly. And he said that is going to cost them the elections. Who am I to oppose? I agree with him. But that is legacy politics. That's what they're used to.
Wow, quite much interesting. I think the last question will be based on something that is close to you, and because you are a lawyer, human rights. We could talk a bit about human rights and even diplomacy. And you saw what happened in Tanzania. Martha Karua was deported back to Kenya. We had Boniface Mwangi of Kenya and Agatha Atuhaire, if I'm not wrong, of Uganda, were, should I say, captured, but they were mistreated before being returned back to Kenya. How do you actually, how should even Kenya respond to such violations by fellow EAC members?
You know, number one, we belong to what is called the East Africa Community.
Okay.
There's an East Africa Community Treaty that establishes the union, the community. And Tanzania is a partner state and a signatory to that treaty. And that treaty guarantees residents, citizens, free movement of labor, services, and people across the partner states. So those Kenyans who were in Tanzania were theirs of right. They had a right to be in Tanzania. And we also have what we call universal human rights. Human rights are universal across the world. So you cannot unlawfully detain someone for being in your country as long as you follow the immigration procedures. Those people didn't walk into those countries as illegal immigrants. They came through the established ports of that country. And as per the treaty, they had a right to be in Tanzania, as per the treaty.
Okay.
So if you had a prudent Kenyan government, they should have by now written.
But they went as activists.
No, even if you go as an activist, you go as a businessman, you go as a politician, you go as
But
as long as what you are doing.
But they went to cause chaos.
No. What is causing chaos? They are going to attend a court process, a judicial process, and if somebody has gone to cause chaos, let him to cause that chaos that you're saying. Then charge him under your country's laws. Yeah, charge him. You have a penal code in Tanzania. Charge him under that penal code. You don't preempt what somebody is going to do. Let him do it. Then you charge him if at all he commits an offense. Martha Karua was going as an observer to the judicial process in Tanzania. What is that causing chaos about? There's no activism in political rights. And who said activism is a crime? It's not a crime. Just like broadcasting is not a crime. Activism is not a crime. Being a politician is not a crime. Being a lawyer is not a crime. So let everybody do their thing. Being a policeman is not a crime. So it is the point when somebody commits a crime, you don't deport him. There are Kenyans who are incarcerated in Tanzania prison even as we speak today, who committed crimes in Tanzania. They were tried under Tanzanian law and convicted. If any Kenyan commits a crime, charge him there. Don't deport him. Don't deport criminals.
Wow.
So there's nothing these people did.
Quite interesting.
That is why they were deported.
Okay.
If they committed a crime, they would have been charged in Tanzanian courts.
Thank you so much, Wakili, for allowing us to have this conversation with you. Perhaps as we conclude, maybe you are parting short, but perhaps you'll tell Kenyans, as we prepare for the 2026
Election.
is it 2026 elections?
2026, I guess.
Okay. As we prepare for 2026 elections or 2027, whichever comes first, what should Kenyans prepare? How should Kenyans? What should Kenyans look for, even in the leaders they should even elect, and how should they prepare themselves?
No, I think it's time for Kenyans.
And
to
you could
know.
even tell us why, and if we should expect you somewhere in 2027.
No, we are 2026. We are still running.
Okay.
And Safina Party will be on the ballot, and we are very clear.
Yes.
Ours is about an economic liberation.
Yes.
Anybody who believes in economic liberation, we invite him to Safina. But to Kenyans, I invite them. This time, we have to make a choice. Continue the legacy politics, or the time has come when we must decide that which works for Kenya not for legacy politicians. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Wakili. It's been great having you, and thank you so much, of course, our viewer, for watching this. This is the Power Table, where we get to bring different political leaders. We get to bring opinion shapers. We get to discuss issues that critically touch on what matters to you on the Power Table. My name is Eugene Kwach, and we come to you on this channel to inform you more. And thank you so much for viewing, and a very good night. Until next time.